There was an extraordinary man in a small community, known for his unwavering generosity and helpfulness. He was a gentle soul, always ready to help others, regardless of the circumstances. He felt a strong desire to be helpful, and so he would go to great lengths to fulfill requests and avoid saying no, for fear of hurting or disappointing someone. His refusal was always accompanied by long explanations, for fear of appearing rude or selfish when he denied a request. This characteristic of wanting to justify every refusal ended up becoming a heavy burden in his life. He found himself submerged in a multitude of tasks and commitments, barely having time to look after his own needs. He felt exhausted. He also noticed that many people around him seemed to take advantage of his goodwill without even acknowledging or valuing his efforts. A colleague at work always asked for reports without thanking him or acknowledging the work he had done. A neighbor often asked him to look after his cat, but he never returned the favor. A friend constantly asked to borrow money. Each situation seemed to add more weight to the already tired shoulders of this generous man. Despite his compassionate heart, he began to realize that his willingness to help was being exploited and misinterpreted, becoming a one-way street where his generosity was not mutual. The emotional weight of not being able to deny a request was taking its toll. The feeling of being trapped in a cycle of obligations and unmet expectations began to undermine his own happiness. He wondered if his kindness was a weakness, if the act of helping without limits was really the best way to express his generosity. One day, feeling overwhelmed and undervalued, he decided to seek guidance. Remembering a wise old man in the neighborhood, who lived in a Buddhist temple nearby, he decided to ask for advice. The old man, with his serene gaze and welcoming smile, warmly welcomed him into his temple, into his chambers. Upon arriving at the wise old man's temple, the man found a welcoming and simple environment. The place exuded an atmosphere of tranquility, with old and worn furniture but full of stories and meanings. Stacked books occupied worn shelves, creating a comforting setting. The old man invited him to sit down, while he himself settled into his favorite armchair. With a gentle gesture, he offered a cup of hot tea, the aromatic scent of which filled the room. The man felt tense, unable to articulate his concerns, but the serenity of the old man was like a balm for his restlessness. Little by little, he began to share his anguish, describing the feeling of overload and devaluation that consumed him. Carrying the weight of his worries and dilemmas, he sat before the sage with a tired, restless look on his face. His bent shoulders reflected not only the physical load but also the emotional burden he carried with him, revealing the difficulty in denying other people's requests and the constant need to explain himself, even when his choices were legitimate and fair. The man vented about his dilemmas and worries, expressing his discomfort at constantly saying no and explaining himself, each word laden with a mixture of frustration and longing for emotional freedom. The wise man, seated in front of her, listened with serene eyes and a compassionate expression, his calm presence conveying a sense of welcome and understanding, as if he were attuned not only to the words, but also to the hidden feelings. The sage listened attentively and wisely, offering simple but profound advice. After absorbing each dilemma shared, the sage took a deep breath, as if gathering all his wisdom to offer transformative advice. With a soft voice, yet filled with calm authority, he began to share his insights. His simple but profound words echoed in the man's mind like drops of timeless wisdom. Young man, learn to say no without explaining yourself. Respect your limits and your priorities. Put yourself first before thinking of others. Sometimes strength lies in the delicacy of a no, said the sage, while his eyes transmitted ancient wisdom. Saying no to situations is not just denying others, but it is an act of authenticity with yourself. It is a gift that you offer, allowing yourself to honor your limits and needs. Curious, the young man asked how he could do this. The old man shared assertive and simple phrases to deny something without being rude or defensive. He encouraged him to practice such responses, maintaining firmness without apologizing or dwelling on justifications. It's perfectly acceptable to express your limits, the elder continued, transmitting a reassuring energy. Here are some phrases that can help you position yourself with clarity and kindness. I'm sorry, but I can't do that right now. I appreciate your understanding, but this is beyond me, or simply, no, this doesn't work for me. Receiving these words as precious teachings, the man felt a new determination growing inside him. He longed to practice these phrases, feeling that he finally had the tools to express himself without feeling guilty or defensive, gratitude shining in his eyes as he absorbed each of the elder's pieces of advice, committing himself to applying these new skills in his daily life, and determined to change his approach. The man began to apply these techniques in his daily life. He was surprised to realize that saying no without explanation wasn't as challenging as he had imagined, and he felt a weight being lifted from his shoulders. When he began to put his limits into practice, something incredible happened. He felt freer, lighter and, surprisingly, happier. He noticed that people began to respect and value him more. His relationships became more balanced and healthy. He learned that saying no without explaining himself was a way of taking care of himself. The moral of the story lay in the importance of respecting oneself, setting healthy limits and not canceling oneself out in the name of generosity. Following the example of Jesus, who knew how to say no when necessary, teaches us to reject what takes us away from what is good. Saying no is exercising our freedom responsibly, respecting our limits and priorities. The story of this extraordinary man is not just an isolated account, but a timeless lesson for us all. The ability to say no without apologizing is a valuable skill that we can all cultivate in order to find a balance between generosity and self-care. If you too want to discover the power of saying no without apologizing, join us on our channel, where we share wisdom, reflections, and tools for a balanced and fulfilling life. Together, we can learn to set healthy boundaries and cultivate relationships based on mutual respect. Subscribe now and embark on this journey of self-discovery and personal growth. Until the next Zen story.